The time? The morning of August the 27th, 1977. The crews of 15 yachts prepare for the voyage of a lifetime. 170 men and women face 27,000 miles of ocean round the world and the notorious Cape Horn before they will return to Portsmouth again next spring. Most are hand-picked. Some have made the voyage before in earlier races, and a few will round Cape Horn for the third time. But let Robert James, the young skipper of Great Britain II, explain.
I think we're at a disadvantage in respect of boat speed in light weather against some of the 50 or 60 footers, going very fast in light weather, the more modern designs. And also we're at a slight disadvantage going to windward against Condor, which is a boat of our size but much newer. However, we've got a longer waterline than any of them, and as soon as we can point where we want to go, then I think we'll have the speed advantage.
Finally, what about food? I know that people who sail with Che Blythe have to live almost on a totally uninterrupted diet of curry. What sort of variety are you taking with you?
Quite a variety, actually. We were loading the food yesterday and we still haven't all got it stowed away. It's a tremendous amount of food for that number, of course. It's good variety. 7 main dinners, which we would rotate throughout the week. One of them's curry, of course, but the rest are normal food.
Robert James, thanks very much indeed.
Pleasure.
After a mere 6 weeks of preparation and surrounded by a vast armada of spectators, they're off. 6,000 miles to Cape Town and the start of the adventure of a lifetime. For Great Britain II and her crew of novices, it was an impressive start, just astern of the mighty Condor. Out into the Channel, and suddenly it was the real thing. The days of training already seemed far away, and there's no going back now.
The general lack of experience in our crew was, of course, one of the worries I had in my mind, immediately before and also during the early stages of the race. It was not a worry of the danger to the yacht, or even injury to the crew, because I believe that with care and reasonably well worked out sail handling systems, we could avoid trouble. I was far more concerned that we might lose valuable miles in the first few days of the race, because our standards of helming, sail trimming and sail handling were below that of all our competitors. Case, but due to our learning speed, it was not as bad as I'd originally feared.
Then it's the Atlantic and down the northeast trades. The yacht shows her fast-learning crew what she can do, surging up to 15 knots and more under full main and spinnaker. There's no room for mistakes here. Other yachts in the race are still in sight, and the crews have to keep a constant lookout as they enter the Bay of Biscay. Apart from sail training, Skipper James always took trouble to explain tactics, navigation, and the reason behind his decisions. For the watch on deck, it's a time to keep the yacht moving. For those off-duty, it was a time for more basic chores. Repairing sails was a constant task that had to be carried out in all weathers. For others, it was a chance to relax and sunbathe, to wash clothes and other gear, or help the duty cook with the daily bread ration for the evening meal ahead. Fresh food was never a problem that bothered the crew of Great Britain II, and bread, they say, is the staff of life. Some of the crew, not realizing that this was the easiest stage of the whole race, find time to dance about and skylark, while others chatted up birds. And one even tried to join them. The equator. And for Nick Dunlop, the crossing of the equator was a double cause for celebration. It was his 21st birthday. Apart from this, the yacht was also 21 degrees west and 21 days out from the starting line at Portsmouth. Once through the doldrums and across the equator, it's hard on the wind into gale-force southeast trades, right on the nose for Cape Town. For the crew, a routine is established between keeping their watches and the more domestic pursuits. Even in mid-Atlantic, Di Thomas Ellum, who gave up her job as a top executive secretary in London, doesn't allow her standards and her appearance to slip.
The rewards of getting everything perfect were tremendous. The right sails for the wind, correctly trimmed, and the helmsman steering a good course, soon produced a good day's run. and with the help of happy hour, high crew morale.
After 4 weeks at sea, and in spite of continual pounding of the yacht into the South Atlantic seas, the crew establishes its own way of passing the long hours off watch. Meanwhile, the yacht is maintaining a steady average of 8 knots or more towards Cape Town and the finish of the first stage of the race. It's all hands to change sail, and age is no excuse for taking the easier task. Charles Sutcliffe in the foreground, the 62-year-old former police commissioner from Hong Kong, puts everything he can muster into it, with both hands for the ship and one for himself.
Of all the yachts racing in the world today, Great Britain too has the largest spinnakers, longest and heaviest spinnaker poles, longest foredeck, and probably the largest genours. These factors make for enormous problems when it comes to racing efficiently, because although larger sails means larger handling gear, crewmen meanwhile stay the same size. Because of the disparity between crew strength and the weight of the gear, it was always necessary to have plenty of people on deck for any sail change. 9 was the usual number. We also started with a situation that not everyone knew instinctively the use of each sheet, guy or halyard, so it was necessary to carefully allocate jobs before a sail change. I think it was a mistake early on my part to expect everyone to be able to do every job, and in fact I should have been more specific in my allocation of tasks on deck.
At last, the South African coastline appears, and it belies the thought that it might be summer. Grey clouds cover the famous Table Mountain and sweep down to a grey sea. But this does not deter the happiness in the hearts of the crew of Great Britain II. They've not arrived first, but this doesn't matter at this stage of this long race. They've completed the first leg, and that's what really matters. What's more, they've learned a great deal about themselves and their yacht. Once in port, the yacht had to be refitted and prepared for the long 7,500-mile chase to New Zealand, this time through the notorious Roaring Forties. It was lucky that Nick paid good attention to the guardrails, because it was on these very rails that he was to depend for his life in the voyage ahead. Repairs and maintenance to the instruments, the hull and the sails were vital. It's always said that a stitch in harbour is worth 9 at sea. Robert James has made the voyage before and knows what to expect. He's imparted all he can to his crew, who, as they check equipment, rigging, sails and the yacht's hull, begin to realize that their lives may depend on their thoroughness now. The work completed, they're able to enjoy the superb South African countryside and beaches. The refitting and celebrations over, the yachts pull out of the dock at the Royal Cape Yacht Club. The orange Dutch boat, Tealsa, and John Ridgway's Debenhams lead the way. They head out into Table Bay for the start of the first of 2 perilous legs through the Southern Ocean and Roaring Forties, 7,500 miles to New Zealand. The shortest course, had it been possible, is the Great Circle that crosses the Antarctic continent. But ice will prevent the yachts going much further south than 60 degrees, and most will sail between 40 and 55 south. Robert James has sailed Great Britain II to another cracking start, with Table Mountain providing a fitting backdrop to the scene. Once more, in light, warm weather that belies what certainly awaits ahead, the crew settle down into the routine of keeping watches, changing sails, and running the yacht. Skipper James, happy with the way the crew have learned on the first leg, knows that this haul to New Zealand is where Great Britain II can hold her own against the smaller but more modern and more professionally crewed yachts. They're only 2 days behind the leaders on actual time for the race, and this next leg will take anything from 32 to 45 days. They cross tacks with the French ketch Gauloise II, soon to lose her rudder and have to put back to a South African port. But for this, the French yacht might well have won the whole race on handicap. Gradually, the wind increases and sails are reduced. But the sunshine stays, and it becomes hard to believe that they're heading for some of the roughest, least hospitable seas in the world. Soon they have their first taste of the roaring 40s, and the warmth is replaced by leaden skies and screaming winds. Great Britain II, old lady that she is, picks up her skirts and begins the cold rush southeastwards towards the Antarctic and the icebergs. It's now cold, very cold. And as if to emphasize the point, an iceberg is sighted to the south. Bob James first warns the crew to keep a special watch for bergs, while those below are called on deck for a sail change.
Well, there are a lot of small bits around too during the night, yesterday evening, and also we saw some more this morning.
Once sure that all is well on deck, James warns the other yachts of the bergs by radio.
Well, I hope we get out of this field soon because, you know, it's so much fun at night. Navigation during the race is two aspects. One, knowing where you are, which is easy. Two, knowing where to go, which is difficult. There were very few days, probably only 5 or 6 from the total of 134, during which it was impossible to get a sight of the sun, planet or stars. We certainly had no problems fixing our position. However, deciding one's tactics was quite different. Obviously, the aim was to get from A to B as quickly as possible. This may not mean going the shortest route, it rarely does, as weather patterns play a large part in the speed of a yacht. The effect of weather is a much discussed subject. Usually the skipper who gets it right will claim he worked it out from statistics and forecasts, and the skipper who gets it wrong will lament that he was unlucky and that no amount of study could have predicted the weather pattern. I believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle, with both critical weather analysis and good luck playing a part. If I had any doubts about the course to sail, I would analyze all the routes and speeds of previous yachts in other races and choose the one that succeeded before. There was one other factor that affected our navigation, and that was the chat show or daily inter-yacht radio schedule. We'd all exchange positions and weather conditions, and these factors very often had some bearing on our own plans.
That's right, that's correct.
The chat show, more importantly, provided the high spot of the day. All the crew who were awake would gather round the radio and listen avidly to the news and gossip from other yachts. It was very often tales of woe, such as sails blown out, or exhilaration, such as high speeds and good mileages, or simply details of life on board that we discussed. None of us will forget the voices of other skippers or radio operators booming or squeaking into our private world.
Once more, for skipper navigator James, a perfect landfall off New Zealand. They round the North Cape and sail south towards Auckland on the east coast of North Island. As they sail into Auckland Harbour, the incredible New Zealand welcome begins, as well as another period of refit and maintenance. The yacht has sailed more miles on the last leg of this race alone than many yachts sail in 10 years. And since launching in 1972, Great Britain II has by this time sailed more than 120,000 miles under racing conditions. reach the dock in Auckland, and only Condor is there. Tired hands pass lines, and then, while Robert James discussed problems of removing the mast and refitting the yacht, the mail arrives amid champagne and celebration, and they catch up on the news from home. Having briefed local repairers about the work on the yacht, Robert James emphasizes just how important maintenance can be, as he describes how an almost tragic accident happened involving him many miles south of Australia.
Yes, we had a pretty nasty moment. We were taking a spinnaker down. We should have taken it down a bit earlier, I think. We were pushing it a bit too hard. As we were taking it down, we lost control of it. It went over the side of the boat here, fell in the water. Nick Dunlop, who's one of my watch leaders myself, went to this corner of the boat here to start pulling it in. By that time it was lost. One of the ropes attached to the spinnaker went round his waist and round my legs in a loop, and the whole dragging of that storm spinnaker, which is over 3,000 square feet, was pulling tight. Nick threw up and collapsed. He was unconscious. My legs were giving me a lot of, it was really very unpleasant. One of the guys ran up with a knife. Before he could cut us free, we'd been dragged down the deck. We'd broken that stanchion there. And when he cut us free, I was all right. I was able to move. Nick was unconscious. We couldn't move him. He regained consciousness. He was in so much pain. We took the table from the saloon to use as a stretcher. We had to give him morphine before we could move him. And he was in a lot of agony for a few days. I was all right until I warmed up and got some circulation back in my legs, and then I couldn't go on deck. I couldn't walk. But I recovered after a couple of days. Condor, we rang them on telephone every 6 hours. In fact, to begin with, every 2 hours to talk to their doctor, which was terrific of them. And their doctor diagnosed the problem, and he told us what to do, what drugs to give. And Nick has now recovered, other than that he's as a result of the high blood pressure caused by this constriction around the waist. His eyes, he's got no whites to his eyes. They're completely red still, which makes him look quite frightening. Yeah. But the doctor from Condor was telling us that, do this, do that, it wasn't a problem. Originally, I thought we'd have to stop in Tasmania, and we altered course slightly, and then Nick recovered so quickly that, all's well.
Christmas in New Zealand is over, and it's time to go. Now the scene is familiar to the crews, as hundreds of spectator craft surround the 15 boats which are setting out once more on Boxing Day, this time for the notorious Cape Horn and its attendant reputation. Great Britain II now lies a mere 10 hours behind the race leaders on actual time for the voyage from Britain to New Zealand, and Robert James is determined to close this gap completely, even take the lead, by Rio de Janeiro. To him and his crew, being home faster than the others is the name of the game. After the start, they lie close to the handicap leader of the race, the Dutch Ketch Flyer. But the wind fills and they pull away. Flyer is their main rival for line honours for the voyage. So could this be an omen? The roaring 40s show that they've lost none of their fury as the yacht heads south once more towards Cape Horn. Cape Horn is, in fact, at about the same latitude south as John O'Groats is north, and London is on the same latitude as the Roaring 40s. But the Gulf Stream fortunately spares Britain the continual tempest that ravages these latitudes in the southern hemisphere. Snow, icebergs, and howling winds.
405, sir. 10622, East 7.
Roger, you must have had a similar day by the looks of that run. We passed similar icebergs today. I don't know if we passed them in the night. Both fairly close.
Yeah, and the crew don't particularly like to look at.
A pack of killer whales takes a look at the yacht, and the crew watch the whales with caution. In the past, several yachts have been attacked by killer whales, which are large and strong enough to inflict considerable damage to a yacht, even the size of Great Britain II. In the round-the-world race 2 years ago, a French yacht hit a killer whale off the coast of South Africa while doing more than 10 knots. One of the crew later described the experience as like riding a bike into a brick wall. The steering gear breaks under the continual strain, and the yacht becomes momentarily uncontrollable. Sail is reduced, and an emergency tiller is attached straight on to the rudder head.
All right, tequila. Fica sempre essa distância.
At last, Cape Horn, and Robert James talks about it, recalling the feelings, perhaps, of all those that rounded it.
Cape Horn has more excitement and romance than any other rock anywhere in the world. This was my second rounding, and amazingly, both were at midnight local time. On the first occasion in 1974, we passed 8 miles south on a pitch-dark night, and we saw nothing. This time we weren't going to miss it. We first saw the Horn before dark on the horizon ahead of us, and we set course to pass very close, under a sky alternating between bright moon and charging lines of black rain squalls. We rounded less than 3 miles off. What an awe-inspiring sight the dark rock made, and what a secret sense of relief we all felt as we raced under storm spinnaker back into the friendly Atlantic.
After the problems of being struck by lightning, they reach Rio, first boat home, and with their lead established for the whole course. It was gratifying to have beaten the Condor by only 30 minutes, though 30 minutes over a distance of 7,500 miles is scarcely measurable. First to Rio. That was the most gratifying fact of all.
Where's she from?
Well, our worst problem was being struck by lightning, which was very frightening. Henry was on the wheel, in fact, and he got quite a nasty shock. 3 of the guys got slightly burnt fingers. They were touching a sail, taking the mizzen down. But the most frightening thing was the top of the mast sort of lit up, and the wind instrument at the top of the mast melted completely, and there were lumps of sort of fiery metal falling off the top of the mast. There was a big flash from down below, and the sailing instruments blew up and were damaged beyond repair. And the other problem was that the compass started pointing all over the place. The whole ship became magnetized. From then on, we were sailing without instruments and with this very erratic compass, which meant checking it relative to the sun or the moon, every half hour. But fortunately, none of us were hurt. We were quite apprehensive about throwing a mooring line ashore in case we had a most fantastic static charge as soon as we touched the land. All these things go through your mind. I mean, you can logically work out the boat's not charged and everything's all right, it's not going to hit again. But once you've been hit like that, it's very worrying. And from then on, every time we saw a rain cloud, we all put shoes on and wore gloves.
Farewell to Rio, the carnival, the beaches, the hangovers. After 3 weeks there, 1 or 2 of the crews regarded the chance to go back to sea as something of a rest. For the crew of Great Britain II, it was a reversion to the old routine: watch-keeping, helming, sail-changing, sail-mending, and sleep. The start is slow, but Great Britain II is confirmed as leader on actual time for the total distance to Rio. And this means there can be no let-up on the final 5,500 miles to Portsmouth. Newly acquired and learned skills have made sail hoisting and changing a far simpler matter than the struggles of the early days 6 months before. The need to hold the slender lead is always there, and press on are the words of the day. Once clear of the South American coastline, it's through the hot, stifling, windless doldrums and to the equator once more. No visit of initiation by King Neptune this time, but a warship approaches the yacht as she in turn approaches the Azores and the end of the warm weather. A sunset follows a brisk day's sail, while sail mending still remains an essential job, particularly as the sails, some of which are on their 3rd voyage round the world, are beginning to show signs of the strain from the storms of the Southern Ocean and the Atlantic. The North Atlantic begins to show its February form. The main boom is broken, but with forecasts of following winds for the final run northwards to the Channel, no attempt is made to repair it. As the yacht approached the coastline of England, winding off the final miles, it was a time for the crew to reflect and evaluate the experience. What had the voyage made them as people? More tolerant of others, more understanding of themselves, less bothered by material things, more appreciative of the basic factors of life. All these, and a great deal more besides. They finish in pitch darkness and enter the dock at Portsmouth, first home on actual time in the world's longest yacht race. But let Robert James sum the voyage up.
My final thought as we lay safely back in Portsmouth was of how much we had achieved. We had set out with the least experienced crew in an attempt to win the Line Honours prize. We arrived back with a happy, enthusiastic and highly skilled team, no longer amateurs, and with a prize to collect.